Hello, welcome to One African Mission with your brother Dobia Anzanse. Please, if you are seeing us for the first time, please take time out of your busy schedules and then subscribe to our YouTube channel, One African Mission, and also like the video, share it, because what we are hearing is that the more you share the video, the more you like it, YouTube will open it up for other people to see. So if you like what we are doing, we are missionaries, One African Mission. We are on a mission, and our mission is to see a united Africa, because we believe that without unity, the future of Africa, the future of the children of Africa will continue to be dictated to us by people who never love us. I call them the colonial criminals, because it's about time we stop calling them colonial masters, because there is a master will never do what these people did to Africa and continue to do to Africa. So we should give them the right, we should call them the right name. And this is colonial criminals. These people came to Africa. We opened our doors to them. And then at the end of the day, we all know history tells us what they did to us. So I want us to go and watch this lady, this European Union Commissioner, Ursula von der, whatever they call her. And then you can see the lack of sincerity from her face, talking about win-win partnership with Africa, investing with Africa, respecting Africa, and all that. And you see, it is two different videos, so you will have to take your time to watch it, because as the Europeans continue to disrespect Africa, and then because of China and Russia trying to come and talk about partnership with Africa and win-win cooperation with Africa, Russia is introducing Swahili and then through another African language in their schools. So this will tell you that Russia, when it comes to dealing with Africa, they are more sincere than these Europeans, because this Western world, they are never sincere when it comes to talking about Africa. They always start to talk about partnership with Africa, respecting Africa, win-win, when Russia and China started to talk about Africa. I don't believe that the future of Africa should be in the hands of Russia. I don't believe that the future of Africa should be in the hands of China. I believe that the destiny of Africa, the future of Africa should be decided by the children of Africa. And then it is me and you who should take up this mantle to decide the future of Africa for us. But when when China and Russia are talking about win-win situation, win-win partnership, and all of a sudden these Europeans are jumping into this, then I get pissed anytime I hear this woman, this lady talking. Anytime I hear her talking about Africa, I get pissed, because there is no sincerity. You can see that she...
Or think about the Sahel region, one of the poorest, yes, yet fastest growing demographically. The succession of military coups will make the region more unstable for years ahead. Russia is both influencing and benefiting from the crisis, and the region has become fertile ground to the rise of terrorism. This is of direct concern for Europe, for our security and our prosperity. So we need to show the same unity of purpose towards Africa as we have shown towards Ukraine. This is a must. We need to focus on cooperation with legitimate governments and regional organizations. We need to develop a mutually beneficial partnership which focuses on common issues for Europe and Africa. And this is why, together with HRVP Borrell, we will work on a new strategic approach to take forward at the next EU-AU summit.
It's just lying, and everything that she's saying or she's talking about Africans, or with this generation of Africans, should never take her serious. So I want to... So you see her, she's talking about, and another thing is, she also talk about the next Africa-Europe summit. I'm pleading to the leadership, our leaders, please, if there is going to be any summit between European Union or Europe and Africa, it should be held in Africa. We are sick and tired of them sitting down and calling our leaders. This is all part of the psychological warfare that they have waged against Africa, that Africa is so dirty, that they can never come to Africa. to sit down and decide the future of Africa and Europe together. It is always them. It is always us going to them for them to decide what the future of Africa should be. It is about time we bring an end to that. It is about time African leaders not only talk but walk or put into action what they are saying. Because the last time the president of Kenya was talking about them sick and tired of being called all over the world by Europe, by America, by China, by Afghanistan. If Afghanistan president called them, they will all run. 54 leaders will all run to them. And he was talking about they want to bring an end to that. And today we hear this lady talking about, again, African European summit. We want Africa to make sure that this time around, if there's going to be any country calling for a summit between them and Africa, it should be held in Africa as well. We are sick and tired of us going to them. That is part of the psychological warfare. That is the reason why their children don't respect us as African children, as African people. Yes, so as he's talking about that, look at what Russia is doing.
Ties between Africa and China. Moscow has opened foreign language courses in its schools that now study Chinese, Swahili, and Amharic. RT's correspondent Marina Kosareva visited some of these schools to learn what's new.
Russia and Africa have become friendlier than ever in recent years, and yet another step towards cementing that relationship is learning each other's languages. The number of Russians speaking an African language will grow as well, because this September a handful of public schools across Moscow began teaching Amharic and Swahili. I visited two of them to see just how much interest there is.
It all started when we went to the university where they told us about Amharic. Even then, we were told that we might be able to study it. I was happy because this is a unique opportunity.
This school was attended by the late Russian diplomat and former UN ambassador Vitaly Churkin, so it makes sense that this was among the schools chosen.
We must understand that the options to learn this language are divided into two parts for our graduates. On the one hand, African countries are a promising market, and graduates with knowledge of the Amharic language could be in demand for businesses or future investors. On the other hand, one of the UN's institutions is located in the capital of Ethiopia. We hope that students, if they are imbued with culture and history, can be in demand at international organizations such as the UN and UNESCO.
So far, 2 African languages are on offer here in Moscow. Amharic, which is the official language of Ethiopia, but also used in other parts of Eastern Africa, and Swahili, which is the official language of Kenya, Tanzania, and the African Union as a whole. For centuries, students around the world were taught English, French, German, or Spanish as a foreign language in schools. It was always something European, definitely not Asian or African, but not here in Russia. Take the school, for example, where Chinese is the first language, and now they're introducing Swahili as well. Let's check it out.
Он связан у нас с легендой о богине Луны. Кто из вас знаком с этой легендой?
My colleagues and I thought for a long time about how we could promote rare and special languages at this high school level. Last year, we entered into an agreement with the Moscow State University, and they asked if we would like to study an African language in addition to Chinese. Of course, we agreed. We were ready. Anything interesting is sure to come to us. And this year, we have recruited a whole class that studies the Swahili language. The guys are happy. They really like it. They can already say something, despite the fact that less than a month has passed since the start of their studies.
I can read, I can write, I can speak in short phrases. I think that I can even partially understand documentaries in Swahili. I had never heard of Swahili language before, and I was very interested to find out what kind of language it was when I heard about it, and decided to move to this school. And now I'm planning to enroll in Oriental Studies or the Swahili-related department.
You know, this is a first experience, and of course I can't say that it's easy for us as the Institute's representatives or for the students. We are still getting used to each other and editing the program because it is based on a textbook that is studied at higher school levels. In general, this program will encourage children to have a positive perception of Africa so that they and their parents understand the prospects of the continent.
This initiative is said to have made Russia the first European country to teach African languages in its public schools. It was made possible thanks to Moscow's Institute of Asian and African Studies, who not only curated the process, but also helped provide the teachers. The school year just started, so it's too early to tell just how popular and successful these lessons will be. But one thing we can say for sure, the kids are excited and looking forward to not only learn an African language, but also visit the continent and be able to interact with the people there. Some would say that's already a significant step forward.
Demen Tarachu.
Siwezi kusema Kiswahili.
Mshipsi akwa.
Jina langu ni Ksyusha.
Mimi ni mwanafunzi.
Salam.
Ibala Lau Platon.
Nina Penda Kula.
Karibu chai, Bwana.
Hakuna Matata. Kwaheri.
African states.
Russia is introducing Swahili and also what's the language in Ethiopia, the official language in Ethiopia. Russia is introducing that. Russia is began in this September, last September, teaching their school children, how to speak African languages and what is African countries doing. Because the African Union has adopted Swahili as Africa official language. Why is it that we don't hear Nigeria talking about teaching Nigerian children Swahili? Why is it that we don't hear Cameroon teaching Cameroonian children Swahili? Why is it that we don't hear Togo, Ghana, teaching our children Swahili? Why is it that we don't hear Mozambique, Namibia teaching their children? Why are we still holding on to these colonial criminal languages? Why can't we for once adopt our own something that is original, like that is ours? It can be any language in Africa, any popular language in Africa, Swahili. But we will look for reasons not to use Swahili. We will say it is this, it is that, and yet we prefer to use French, even though we know the history of French, how French was taught to our ancestors. We know the history of English, Portuguese, how it was forced on our ancestors. Why can't we just adopt Swahili or the official language of Ethiopia? Why can't we? Even one thing that we should do as African people is to take the Ethiopian New Year or the Ethiopian calendar as our calendar as Africans. The Chinese have their own calendar. The Indians have their own New Year. The Europeans got their own. The Arabs have their own. Why can't we as African people also adopt the Ethiopian New Year as our New Year and dump this European and other people's stuff? Why do we love to embrace other people's stuff and cannot embrace our own? At least the Ethiopian New Year can represent Africa. We must have something unique that represents us. The Chinese got their own. The Europeans have their own, December. The Arabs, they have their own. Why can't we as African people also say, no, it's about time we use the Ethiopian calendar as our own, the Ethiopian New Year? Because just recently, Ethiopia has their New Year. We can use it. After all, Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, is the capital, the administrative capital of Africa. It is about time Africa starts to think. As we speak now, Ethiopia is in 2016, whilst the rest of the whilst Europe are in 2023. So, like, if we, the entire continent of Africa, adopt the Ethiopian calendar and the Ethiopian calendar, it will be at least uniquely identified to us as African people, rather than using other people's calendar that we cannot identify ourselves to. Yeah, the Chinese have differences, yeah, but still they have one particular thing that they can, as Chinese people, identify to. They have their own New Year. The Europeans have their own New Year. The Arabs have their own New Year. The Indians have their own New Year. Why can't we as African people also say, okay, yeah, or Bantu Africans also say, okay, we're going to adopt the Ethiopian New Year, the Ethiopian calendar as our own, the entire continent of Africa as our own, so that it can be uniquely be identified to us as African people. It is about time the African Union or the youth of Africa start to think on these ways, so that we cannot be going around like facing mental disorder, trying to be what we are not, trying to be Europeans, trying to be Arabians, trying to be Chinese, trying to be anything than Africa or African. So please, to the youth of Africa, rise and take something uniquely that you can identify to yourself. And I am talking about the Ethiopian New Year or the Ethiopian calendar. Yes, I may not be born in Ethiopia, but at least I'm an African. So at least if you ask me what is the New Year of Africa, then I can tell you, because people do ask that. Europeans do ask that. If you tell me, if I tell you we as African people, we are in 2016 as we speak, you'll be interested to know or to listen to me, rather than we want to be anything else rather than Africans. So I thank you very much for coming around. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, One African Mission. As I said, we are on a mission, and the mission is coming to your doorsteps very soon. Let us all together bring our energies, our spirit, our knowledge to see a united Africa, because it is only a united Africa that can bring an end to the suffering of the African child or African children all over the world. Thank you very, very much for coming around.